Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to a new video. In this episode we are going to have a closer look at big air kitesurfing, and we are going to have a look at the key elements that make a big air jump difficult, and we are also going to discover some things that make a jump look very spectacular but isn't that difficult in the end. My name is Marian Hund. I'm also kind of familiar with kitesurfing. I landed a double back roll not only once but twice, and the following things I have to say are only based on my personal experience. For better visualization, we're going to have a look at the highlight video from the GKA World Cup from Gran Canaria earlier this year. There we see like the top 10 jumps from some of the world's best riders and also the scoring. And also a little disclaimer, I try to be as objective as ever possible without looking at the rider or the brand, just looking at the jump and the score. And also this year I think it's going to be really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to see the big air season building up. We have a new world record, a new height world record from Hugo Wigglesworth from New Zealand. He jumped an astonishing 36.7 meters, which is kind of high, I would say. Also looking at the overall ranking and the Woo Sports, I don't know, ranking list, we can see I think more than 50 people well above 30 meters, which is really impressive, because like a couple of years ago, like 30 meters was like the barrier of sound and hard to break, and now we have so many people jumping above 30 meters. So that's really cool. What are we looking at specifically? In my opinion, it always comes down to the risk factor. So the risk factor is the one thing that should determine the score, in my opinion. Because let's make an example. You're jumping 30 meters high, which is quite high. You're doing 10 rotations, you're doing 10 board spins, but the kite, while you're in the air, is all the time above your head, like at 12 o'clock. So this means the risk is actually quite low, because you're jumping like this. You're going high and then you're going down very slowly. And this, I don't know, there's just no risk. The biggest thing that can happen to you is like you're not getting the board on your feet, you're like overspinning a little bit, but that won't kill you, that doesn't hurt you. So there's no adrenaline, there's no wow factor, and big air kiteboarding for me personally is all about the wow factor, all about the adrenaline. So a jump like that, I wouldn't give it a high score actually. So it's a couple of days later, I can finally proceed with the video. The question is how to get the risk factor involved. And for me there's one clear answer: it is about the loop. Only with the loop you can get the risk factor into the jump. The loop is kinda the unknown factor. You don't know what's coming next when starting that loop. It will give you a yank, but you don't know how big is that yank. You don't know if the kite will come up on time and catch you. You don't know where you will end. Like there are just so many factors which you don't know. So like the loop is the kind of Russian roulette we are all looking for. That adrenaline pump definitely comes from that loop. There are many different ways to approach a kite loop. We will have a look at that in a second. In a nutshell, if the rider wants to have a high score for its jump, for me it is mandatory that he does at least one proper kite loop, because this brings the risk factor, the unknown component, into the jump. And then he has to show that he can handle that unknown component and add technical difficulty, which is board spins, rotations, board offs, and so on. And if he managed to land all that combined smoothly, then he deserves a high score. So now let's have a look at the different ways to approach a kite loop. So let's have a look at the typical flight path of a normal jump. So the normal way I would say is you go up after edging, and then the downfall is a lot slower, and then when you're coming back towards the water, it kind of eases out. I would say that's the normal path, right? And now for initiating a kite loop, there are many different ways. Normally, like a proper kite loop, in my opinion, gets started somewhere on the way up. Because on the way up, line tension is much higher, right? And here you have different possibilities where to start that kite loop. I would say the most radical kite loop is initiated somewhere in that area here. Because first of all, you need to gain some height. Otherwise, if you're doing the kite loop in 3 meters height, that's also kind of difficult. And everything here happens quite fast. So I would say that's a good point to start a kite loop. But what we see quite often nowadays is that many of the pro riders start initiating their kite loops somewhere here. So that actually means you're waiting until you have reached the highest point, and then line tension decreases, which also means that the unknown component of the kite loop is much smaller, and when all that is like behind you, then you're starting to do the kite loop. And in my opinion, that involves much less risk than initiating the kite loop here. And a kite loop that gets initiated here should be rewarded much higher than a kite loop that gets initiated on the way down or after the rider has passed its highest point. So let's have a look at the videos. Here we have the highlight clip from the Qatar Airways GKA World Tour from Gran Canaria earlier this year. I think they had quite some wind, they quite had some waves, as you can see here. And we'll just have a look at the highest scoring tricks. There's a highlight video on YouTube. I will also put the link down in the description. And yeah, if we started here, we will have a look at the whole jump, and then after that we will go into details. So as we can see here, Jeremy Bolando going for a double front roll with a contra loop, board off, and then kind of stomps it. So that was the highest scoring trick of the whole event. We are going to have a look at it now. So what happened? So he is edging, everything is kind of working well, going to upside down front roll rotation, nice. Initiating another rotation, and then I would say that is kind of the highest point of the jump, and we still cannot see the kite. So keep that in mind a little bit. And then there's the kite, and he's already on his way back down. The contra loop, so you have two options when doing a loop. You can either loop in the direction of the jump, which is contra loop, or you can loop against the direction of the jump, which is a normal kite loop. And in that case, Jeremy decided to do a contra loop, which is, I would consider it a more easy loop than the kite loop, because like line tension is normally less, and there are less surprises coming with the contra loop. So he does a contra loop here. As you can see in the picture, the kite is quite high. The rider is kind of below the kite, so there's not much risk involved. Also, he has, like, on the right hand he has his board, and then there's actually only one option. If he holds on to the bar, then the kite will do such a contra loop. And also in that case, as you can see here, he's coming down quite fast, and then last second the kite kind of pulls him back out of the water. We're gonna have a look at this again. Here it is, so pay attention. Coming down super fast, and then kite catches him kind of last second. So for me, it's very questionable why this jump in particular gets such a high score. I don't see any risk involved. I don't see any high technical level, and also the landing is not perfect. So this was a 9.3 or something. I wouldn't have judged it that way. Let's have a look at other jumps. So next jump is from Stino Mol. He got a 9.0 for that kite loop combined with a front roll board off. Let's have a look. Whoa. Okay. Okay. Yes. All right. So here we can see here we can see a difference, definitely. So first of all, that jump was much higher, and then also pay attention to the moment he initiates the kite loop. So as you can see, he's still going higher, he's still going up, and he's initiating the kite loop already. So initiating the kite loop way earlier than Jeremy did in the jump before. And now pay attention, he's probably still going up, yeah. And the kite is now right in front of him. That's what we actually want to see, like having the kite and the rider in line, and having them on equal height, because that's like maximum radical. You really, as a rider, you really have to pray that the kite comes up and catches you again. But in that case, Stino has enough height here, so I would consider this probably close to 20 meters or something. So that's a proper jump, and he's even combining it with a front roll board off. So adding to that risk factor, he's adding quite some technical stuff. So I can understand why this is like a score of 9. But what we can also see is that the kite loop is almost over now. So the kite is ready to catch Stino, and he still has some decent height. So this means actually there would have been some space, some margin to do some more stuff, maybe adding a second loop or something. But yeah, it's hard to time such a kite loop with such height and stuff. So maybe that was also a surprise to him, and he didn't plan to do like a double loop, or I don't know. But still, that's a proper jump, and I really like it. But as you can see here, he has a lot of margin, and yeah. Next one is from Jeremy Bolando. Again, he's also scoring close to a 9, and we will see what he does in a second. Front roll 1, 2, board off with a kite loop, another front roll, board rotation, and stomping it cleanly. Yeah, I mean, that jump for sure is super technical. Again, let's have a look at the risk factor. He's taking off. First rotation, there goes the second rotation, and I would consider this like kind of the highest point of the jump. And then we have the kite loop, which could also be much lower, so there's not that much risk involved. And then he goes into another rotation, beautiful control here. And yeah, so as I said, there's a lot of technical stuff going on, but the risk factor is not that high. And it also depends on the judging criteria. So the riders know in advance what the judges will look at and what they want to see. And yeah, it depends. So this jump generally super technical, but not that much risk. For me, as somebody who has the opinion that big air kiteboarding is only about adrenaline and like the unknown, I wouldn't score that one super high, but beautiful jump. Next one from Leonardo Casati. That's the little one from the two brothers. He scored a 8.6 for a kite loop board off. Let's have a look. Okay, going up straight, nice, 2 loops, so double kite loop falling out of the sky. And yeah, so you can also see from his reaction there was a lot of adrenaline involved. He's really stoked to land that one. That's definitely something. When you go into that jump, you don't know how it will end. And the jump before, which we've seen from Jeremy, you have a slight idea how that jump might end. So in that case here, there was a lot more adrenaline involved. Let's have a look what happened. So Leonardo is edging here. He's having a proper takeoff, like beautiful wave here, super steep, and then just going up straight in the sky. He's still climbing higher, already initiated the loop, so here comes the kite. And then highest point I would say is, he's still rising, still going up. So that was the first loop, and then there comes, okay, now he's on his way back, and as you can see, that's the second loop, so there's quite some commitment going on. And the thing about those 2 loops is you really don't know if the kite will catch you. Like with 1 loop, you can be like almost certain that it's possible that the kite comes up on time, but with those double loops, you really don't know what happens next. And as we can see here, Leonardo is entering a proper free fall in a second. Yeah, here it goes. And then the kite catches him right above the surface of the water. Beautiful timing. well executed, and then he manages to land the trick cleanly. I really like that one, cool. And like from a technical point of view, it is definitely a difficult one. You have the board off during the double loops, also the timing and all that stuff around that double loop is kind of hard. Yeah, with the 8.6, maybe I would have scored it a little higher, but yeah, I'm not a judge. Here we have Gil Flucht, 8.5 for an S loop. Let's have a look. And Gil takes off, maybe some problems on takeoff. Beautiful S loop, and kite catches him right above the surface. Again, perfect timing. Let's have a look again what happened here. I think here it starts, yes. So, as I just mentioned, he might had some problems here on the takeoff. As you can see, the wave starts to break and he's right into it. So that's not ideal, but still he managed to do that trick. So that shows what a kind of competition rider he is, because yeah, that can really bring some problems for you as a rider if you take off in such a situation. And then he goes up, initiates, like he's already initiating the first loop. Here's the kite, and he's still going up, right? And then going for that S loop, which means steering the kite in the opposite direction and doing that typical S. And that's what we want to see, like rider and kite, same height, beautiful picture here. And now Gil here in that position, he's just praying that the kite will come up, because he's just done some crazy things with the kite. And as we can see, free fall here again, kite catches him and he can land that one smoothly. So I think he got a 8.5 or something. Yeah, that's a 8.5. In order to spice things up and to get a higher score here, like the risk factor is super high on that one, but he didn't add any technical stuff. So maybe if board off is of course difficult because you need both hands for steering, but you could add some laid back rolls. You could do like a rotation on the takeoff and stuff like that, and then that trick would for sure be scored somewhere in the 9s. But yeah, nevertheless, beautiful trick, and also the conditions are probably not that easy. Here we have Lorenzo, the older brother from the two Casatis, 8.4 for an S loop. Let's see what he does. Beautiful takeoff, a little bit higher than Gil. Okay, and yep. All right, also same trick as before, and as we can see here, Lorenzo had quite some margin. So he was doing the loop a little bit different. He played it a little bit more safe. First of all, he had a little bit more height, I would say, and he initiated the kite loop a little later. Maybe not, but definitely he's riding a smaller kite. So a smaller kite means the kite is traveling faster, is easier to control, and in that case, like the execution is perfect. Also here, same height, beautiful, but here he actually knows that the kite will catch him. So that's like a good scenario for him. And then as we can see here, he has around 3 to 4 meters of space of margin, and that definitely helps him, or that definitely makes things easier. And in that case, I think the judges have scored the trick a little less than Gil's, because like the risk factor is a little bit less, even though he was a little bit higher. So you need to take several factors into consideration to make such a score. But also I would have judged Gil's a little bit higher than the one from Lorenzo. Okay, here we have Jamie Overbeek. Okay, wow, crazy. Okay, nice. I really like his style, pretty cool. Let's have a look again what happened here. Oops, that was a bit too far. So Jamie, he got a 8.4 for a contra loop front roll board off. So what exactly happened? Beautiful takeoff here, going up super fast. First rotation is already done, taking the board off his feet. So also here we have to mention that the board is off his feet for quite a while. Like the other riders tend to do, like board off is super quick, but Jamie in that case, he was really fast, and he took the board off for quite some time, and that definitely makes the jump in general makes it harder, because you only have one hand left to steer the kite, and yeah, that's it's quite impressive what he does here, in my opinion. Another rotation, and he initiates the kite loop a little bit earlier, around the highest point of the jump, I would say. But what we have here in that case, we have combined with a rotation. So you see he's fully upside down, and the kite is not on his level, but a little bit. So I would consider this a very good angle, and I really like the whole jump. And then he puts the board back on his feet, does another 2 rotations, and then lands it super cleanly. So for me, it's hard to understand why this trick, for example, is only an 8.4. And if we compare that one to the first trick, the highest scoring trick, so this one is an 8.4, and then we go to the one from Jeremy, which is only 2 rotations, board off super late, the kite is much higher, the board is off his feet for only a little bit of time. Jamie really had the board off his feet from the beginning till the end, and then here Jeremy's also kind of falling down, and then the kite rescues him in the last second. So I really don't understand why are there such differences in the scoring system, but for sure the judges will have their reason. Anyhow, I'm curious to know your opinion. What are you thinking? What is your favorite jump, and what would you score the highest? Really excited to enter a little discussion here in the comments. Yeah, let me know. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, if you've watched the video that far, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, you know how it works, and then see you in the next one. Cheers!